Welcome to Let's WAFL Part 2, leading into round 5 of the State League season. Now John, a lot of talk about AFL reserves. It continues on and on and on, even though the 9 club presidents have indicated as a block that they're going to veto the idea. It's certainly got a lot of legs around the community. Perth Eagles was a talking point. Should it be the Perth Lions now, because the Demons are doing okay?
Yes, or maybe the West Coast Demons, perhaps. They're a bit far from the West Coast out there, west coast of the Canning River, perhaps. Yeah, they did the rounds, West Coast and Fremantle. They did the rounds of all the WAFL clubs, and that's ended earlier this week. And I think their presentation is going to go to the Footy Commission by about the end of May, so it's going back and back and back. But they say they're going to be very comprehensive in their application and their proposal, as it needs to be, because if there's any questions, well, there's sure to be questions, but if they don't answer those questions, well, I don't think this is going to get up. Is it more of a chance that we could see some takeovers? I think that's
the only way to go.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see 11 teams in the WAFL. I mean, that will just kill the competition. Fremantle certainly spoke to Peel last year, and Peel rejected it, or didn't get off the ground because they thought that was pretty much a takeover. But if it's going to happen, I think that's the only way you're going to have a merger or a very strong alliance between a AFL club and a WAFL club. Perth and Peel, Perth and West Coast makes sense, particularly if the new stadium goes out to Burswood.
But it's been a bit mischievous to say that the Perth Eagles is not far away. Perth and West Coast have spoken about ground sharing, but they haven't spoken about merger. And my understanding, speaking to some Perth board members, is that hasn't actually been discussed, and I don't think West Coast have actually put it on the table either.
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen what's in their proposal.
That's the point. There is no proposal.
Yeah. So until we see that, I mean, we're speculating a bit in the dark. I mean, every man and his dog's coming out, and every person of prominence who's interviewed says it's inevitable. You're going to see reserve sides in the WAFL. I'm not sure if that's the case.
No.
You struggle to make the case. There are so many elements that leave it as a weak proposal, I reckon, including Bronte Howson made a very good point at halftime at the East Perth game on the weekend, and this is something that's quite indirect, but he said one of the strengths of WAFL clubs is that they've got sponsors and they've got supporters and people around the club who give opportunities to players. I mean, it's part of the culture of the club. When you've got a 100-year-old club, you've got people who've been lifelong supporters, business. I mean, he praised a couple of their sponsors who've been involved for 20 years or more, who give jobs to players, who give opportunities to players.
Some Holden and Ford dealers.
Yeah, the car dealers are doing nicely. But that's absolutely right. If you've got a player who ends his career, what's he going to do? Well, there's an immediate link, perhaps, that the player might, there's a business there that he can go to, or that businessman might have contacts somewhere else. It opens doors for people when their football career has finished. These new clubs are going to be teams. They're not clubs. I think the great strength of football, and any sport actually, is about clubs. Clubs provide culture. Teams don't provide culture. Teams are just elements within clubs. And if these reserves teams come in, they won't be clubs, they'll be teams. They'll be organisations of 20-odd players and support staff, and nothing else. That's all they're going to be. They're going to be there for one reason, and that's to put a team on the park at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. The game is far more than that, and that's why the strength of the game is such that it's been going for 120. This league's been going for 120 years. It'll continue to be strong, I think, and part of the reason for that is that the clubs underpin it. Will it happen? I can't see it happening. The only way it is going to happen if the chequebook comes out, and that's going to have to be a very, very, very big numbers on the chequebook.
Well, West Coast have a war chest of about 16 million sitting burning a hole in their pocket, so there might be a bit of cash to fly around from that area, but I'm not too sure that Fremantle are in the same boat to be able to offer too much financial incentive.
Does developing Lewis Broome, that's pretty much what it's going to be about, Lewis Broome and Jacob Brennan and those fringe players, is that worth spending $16 million on?
No.
You'd rather spend it on Gary Ablett and give it to one bloke. Put all your eggs in one basket.
Well, West Coast might need that money to spend it on a new facility. If the new stadium isn't built at Subiaco or on Patterson's Patch, as I like to call it. Now, just keeping on the Perth theme, we'll talk about the Perth Demons. 12-point winners over Subiaco. It's an outstanding win for the Demons, considering everyone expected them to very much struggle this year. Andrew McDougall was very good, and that's another positive sign for Perth.
And he's been quite good this year, and towards the end of last year too. He came back. He's keen on playing footy, and he's giving something back. Imagine if he was at the West Coast Eagles side, would he be giving what he's giving to Perth at the moment? He came up through Perth and went to Wesley, and is contributing pretty strongly. And when you've got a big mobile ruckman who is having an impact and is switched on, your side can develop, not necessarily from the hit-outs, but from his work around the ground. And he's always been mobile. He's played on the wing at a fair bit of his career, and he's going well. And they've got a pretty good midfield too, with Ross Young and Kayla Thompson and Alari doing very well at the moment. So Matt Rogers is another one who was good for them on the weekend.
Now, you'd have to think they could be 3-1 this week. They do meet Peel, and obviously we don't want to call the game before it's played, but Peel are struggling. It is at Brown Stadium, so Perth could certainly be entrenching themselves in the fall at this point of the season.
They go in as pretty strong favourites to the game. It's something that we'll have a look at, is to see when they last won 3 on the trot. It's been a few years now. Perth playing good footy. We've seen it. We thought that was going to happen when they recruited well or got players back like Kayla Thompson and Seamus Young. And but
the team isn't that much different to what Andrew Jarman had, and maybe Damien McMahon isn't spending as much time burning candles or standing behind the goals trying to watch the game. Maybe we're just getting back to good old-fashioned footy development.
Yes, I think if you've got good players and you have a good system, things happen, don't they? Is that the lesson to be learned from that? What's Andrew Jarman doing now?
Andrew who? No. But conversely, Peel still struggling, probably competitive at Anniversary Park, where they seem to play their best footy. Maybe Bendigo Bank Stadium should have been moved there.
I think they lost to South by about 28 points down there last year, and they lost by 29 this week. So they're just holding their own. But again, the issue is going to be what happens if Jesse Crichton goes up and a couple of their really good players go up to the AFL teams, and it gets into the season and the young players drop off a bit, and the lack of Rory O'Brien hurts. How they're going to go? That's pretty much the issue for them. I see Rhett Mason's out of the side. Batty's done a hamstring again. He's an important player for them. Brad Holmes is working. That's another issue that clubs have. That here's a bloke who's got work commitments, so he's been a pretty good forward for them in the last year or two. Brad Holmes. He missed this game against South Fremantle. Very hard for Peel to get much traction, I think. Now
moving on, any scuttlebutt? One of the things I have noticed around the State League is the use of social media, John, and clubs don't want to deal with traditional journalists anymore. They've decided to get the message out themselves, and we did see Chris Waterman provide a video of his team. Maybe you should go back and have a look at it this week following the result, but that was on YouTube, where he pointed out the ins and outs and the goings and comings.
Well, they are an innovative club, Subi. They're going to have dogs to the ground this week, so I don't know what's going to happen if they're out there at three-quarter time in the reserves game.
Will they include them in the attendance figures?
I understand, possibly. If you're counting legs, that certainly helps. I think it's free entry for dogs this week at Leederville Oval. What's that? I struggle to remember the name of that one. Every time I write it down, I have to check myself, because I know I've done the wrong one a couple of times.
Is it going to be called Powell Stadium just for this week? Is it?
Powell. Oh yes.
So chunky you could carve it.
Yes.
Now, will there be a siren with all those dogs there? Will there be a siren, or will there be a high-pitched thing that only the dogs can hear? High-pitched signal.
The scoreboard's struggling, the time clock's struggling, and if the siren works this week, we might see howling going on all up and down Leederville. Actually, talking about social media, I did spot the fact that Swans are involved in social media. They're on Twitter, and already the loss to Williamstown's been gone, because they said on Twitter this morning, coming off their bye, they're now ready to get up and take on South Fremantle. So, if the loss doesn't count, just move on. It doesn't exist. Wasn't on the fixture sheet.
Masters of the spin. Well, let's look forward to round 5. 4 games on the Saturday, no Foxtel Cup commitments for WA sides this week. Swans and Souths looms as an exciting encounter, and probably one of the best of the round.
Yeah, I'll tip Swans. I mean, they've got they're going to have a win sooner or later, and I think that coming back against South, who had to travel all the way down to Rockingham, but I think Swans at home, there is so much to play for in this game. They'll have 12 or plus premiership players out there. If they don't get up and win, well, Greg Harding can well and truly look at himself and the impact that he's having on this group.
Well, that would almost be siren, I would think, for Swan season.
Yeah, well, and they've got a pretty tough ask, actually. You have a look at who they play 3 times. I mean, everyone has to play 4 teams 3 times. They play Claremont, West Perth, South and Perth 3 times this year. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4 on the ladder. So they've got the toughest fixturing of any club. And I mean, as a reigning premiers, you expect you're going to have a tough run, but they didn't expect that Perth would be up and running and West Perth would be going so well. So Swan's got a really tough run for the rest of this season.
Perth and Peel at Brown Stadium?
Yeah, Perth at home against a modest competitive Peel side, but Perth just going nicely.
Never been so confident about the Demons in the last 5 years. Subi Claremont at Medibank Stadium?
Subi will challenge them and put it up to them, I'm sure, but Claremont just going beautifully at the moment.
I think Claremont can pencil that one in straight away. And the Derby, West Perth, East Perth at Arena, Joondalup. Tony McHale goes back to where he received a little bit of encouragement via a wooden spoon.
Yeah.
So, big game for the Royals. And West Perth are firing.
They're going to be savage. It's almost worth going to East Perth training this week just to see how hard they go at
Watch
each other.
out for the spy catcher.
Yeah, Frankie. Yes, he did thank me for that when I ran into him on Saturday afternoon. West Perth going nicely. I reckon it's a danger game for West Perth though. I mean, they know that East Perth are going to throw everything at them, and you're going to see several thousand fairly vibrant East Perth supporters out there, I would have thought, making their selves known. And I'm not sure what time the train leaves, but they'll be out there having an impact.
It's almost as good to watch the crowd in this game, isn't it? You can see the antagonism between the two camps. It never fails to disappoint at a Perth Derby.
There's actually one thing that's apparent to this from the last weekend too, and I think this is something that's going to have a greater impact, and we've talked about it a bit before. The Eagles played at 6:10, I think, wasn't it, on Saturday night? The bar was empty at East Perth. Claremont didn't have presentations after the game there, and there were 30 people in the bar at 6 o'clock. So this, I mean, fixturing against home AFL matches in particular is becoming more and more an issue.
Why don't we look at start playing the reserves early, the league match maybe at 1 o'clock, and the Colts afterwards, which gives you an opportunity as a league supporter to go and have a look at your next generation of players as well. You can have a drink in the bar and poke your head out and see the best under 18s playing around.
Well, this is the forum for waffle innovation, isn't it? Let's waffle. So
well,
that makes a lot of sense, Ross.
Let's push for that.
Yep.
That'll be our big goal for 2000.
Dogs and earlier starts.
Well, that's Let's Waffle looking into round 5. Thanks very much for your company, and we look forward to talking to you next week.